This week, in the third of a five-part series, we're going to take a deeper dive into the second drawer of a self-care tool chest if you come from a childhood trauma background. Hi, I'm Annie Wright, a licensed psychotherapist and an expert in childhood trauma recovery. Every bit of my work in the world, including today's episode, is designed to support those who come from childhood trauma backgrounds to have the best adulthood possible. I'm so glad you're here, and I want to welcome you. If you've ever experienced childhood trauma or had questions about whether or not any of the impacts of it still are impacting you in adulthood, I encourage you to subscribe to this YouTube channel and sign up for my newsletter in the show notes below. And now, as part of helping you have the best adulthood possible, despite how you may have started out in life, we're going to explore today's topic, emotional regulation tools in our self-care tool chest. In this episode, we'll cover the following. What do emotional regulation tools even mean? Then we'll cover tools for emotional regulation and so much more. Before we dive into today's topic, I just want to say that I truly hope that what I share here can be of support to you. And very importantly, please remember, no matter where you're starting from, change is possible. To start, let's discuss, what do emotional regulation tools even mean? I gave a high-level overview of this in my first episode in this series, but to reiterate again, emotional regulation refers to the ability to manage and respond to an emotional experience in a healthy and adaptive way. It involves recognizing and naming, understanding the signal value of, and managing one's emotions in an adaptive way, aka functional and healthy way. We do this to navigate life's ups and downs effectively. Emotional regulation, this skill is crucial for maintaining mental and emotional well-being, really allowing us to handle stress, maintain relationships versus destroying them, and achieve personal goals, not to mention having some sense of equanimity as we move through our days. So, emotional regulation tools are the practices, interventions, and skills that, quite frankly, help us achieve this. Okay? For this next part of our piece, let's add some more tools to your proverbial emotional regulation toolbox right now by exploring some concrete examples for each of those primary tasks I listed: recognizing and naming, understanding the signal value of, and managing your emotions in an adaptive way. To begin, let's start with category number one, naming emotions. One of the first steps in emotional regulation is to accurately identify and name your emotions. This process, often referred to as emotion labeling, can help bring clarity and understanding to how you're feeling. Why does this matter? Well, by naming your emotions, you can better understand what you're experiencing and why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. This self-awareness is really the foundation for managing your emotional responses effectively. One tool to enhance naming your emotions, oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite tools. I call it the filing cabinet of feelings. So I'm not actually talking about a real old school filing cabinet, but rather an imagined one. So very specifically, I want you to think about a filing cabinet that contains four major drawers: sad, mad, glad, and scared. Those are the four big drawers, the four big categories of emotions that comprise your filing cabinet, okay? Then I want you to imagine that you pull out each drawer, and inside each drawer there are hundreds of those little folders, those little, manila folders that contain hundreds more specific emotions inside of the major drawer. So for instance, when a therapy client of mine is struggling to guess or name how they're feeling, I'll invite them to consider which of the four major drawers their feelings could, at that moment, most likely be filed under. Mad, glad, scared, sad. This usually helps them by giving them a starting place to work from. I would just invite you to try this the next time you're struggling to name exactly how you feel, right? Just check in with yourself to see if the general sense of your experience is one of sadness, gladness, madness, or are you scared, right? Which of those four drawers are you really kind of existing in? And then once you identify the major drawer, pull that file out further, pull that file drawer out further and see what the subfolder might be. Under mad, is there irritated, annoyed, enraged, etc., right? Those are all sort of cousins of that larger feeling state. This is one of the primary tools I use to help clients label their emotions. I hope it feels helpful to you. Okay, so task number 2 is understanding and respecting the signal value of emotions. What the heck do I mean by this? Signal value simply means the information contained. In other words, emotions are not random. They carry significant information about our internal states and our interactions with the external world. They contain information for us. When we learn to pay attention to what information our emotions hold, we're better equipped to take action on those emotions. Why does this matter? Well, understanding what your emotions are trying to tell you can help you address the underlying issues causing those feelings. For instance, anger might signal that a personal boundary has been crossed, while sadness might indicate a loss that needs to be grieved and mourned. You've now got more information to take the next most appropriate steps. So how do we practice this? What's an example of this? Let's take that anger example and really flesh it out for you. First, we have to really understand and honor that anger's signal value, aka information, means that we have a need that's not being met or a boundary that's being crossed. So, for example, if you're walking away from a conversation with your sister-in-law and are feeling irritated, annoyed, and just, kind of pissed off, but you don't know why, check in with yourself. Notice your anger and get curious about what may have happened in that interaction. Did she somehow cross a boundary of yours? Did you have a need in that relational moment that didn't get met? Is your anger a sign that you may have to have a follow-up conversation with her or set a boundary with her moving forward about anything at all? Use the information that your anger contains to help you figure out if there's anything actionable you may need to do inside of that relational experience. Okay? Category number 3, task number 3 when it comes to emotional regulation tools, tolerating big feelings. With my tone of voice, I sort of intended to intentionally capitalize the B and F of big feelings because for so many of us from relational trauma backgrounds, this is how it can so often feel. Capital B, capital F, big feelings. Our feelings feel huge because of the intensity of our triggers and the lack of our capacity, for now at least, to tolerate them. So why does this matter? Why does it matter about learning how to tolerate big feelings? Well, it may seem obvious, but learning tools to help cope with and not always just react to those big feelings allows you to process and integrate those feelings and experiences healthily, really kind of decreasing the emotional intensity and potentially reducing damage that may have come from acting out on those big feelings immediately. So what does this mean in practice? What's an example of this? Well, okay, here's a highly effective tool derived from DBT, which stands for Dialectical Behavior Therapy. The tool is called TIPP, T-I-P-P, which stands for Temperature, Intense Exercise, Paced Breathing, and Progressive Muscle Relaxation, TIPP. TIPP is a DBT distress tolerance tool, aka tool to help cope with really big feelings, and it's designed to quickly reduce intense emotions. So here's how we do it. First, change your body temperature by holding your face in cold water. Then next, engage in short bursts of intense physical activity, like running in place, jumping jacks, high knees, whatever. And then next, we practice slowing down your breathing to a really steady pace. Finally, we practice progressive muscle relaxation, tensing up all the muscles of your body and then relaxing each muscle group. Each one of those steps of the TIP exercise, TIPP, each of these steps helps to calm your nervous system, release emotional energy, and reduce the physical and emotional tension that comes from capital B, capital F, big feelings. TIP is a wonderful tool to help you learn how to cope with your really big feelings when and if they come up. The fourth task, the fourth tool when it comes to emotional regulation categories of tools, the fourth kind of category, in my opinion, is appropriately expressing emotions. So what do I mean by this? Expressing emotions appropriately versus lashing out inappropriately is really essential for maintaining healthy relationships and achieving emotional well-being. This basically involves communicating your feelings in a way that's honest, respectful, and regulated versus, as you can imagine, dysregulated, really disrespectful, and irresponsible. Why does appropriately expressing your emotions matter? It may seem obvious, but appropriate expression of emotions helps prevent misunderstandings in our relationships. It reduces interpersonal conflict, and it promotes emotional intimacy. It also allows you to assert your needs and boundaries effectively, hopefully preserving relationships versus damaging them. So, how do we practice this? Well, in one of my earliest pieces that I ever wrote as a therapist writing online, I shared a wealth of nonviolent communication tools like framing conversations for success, pacing the conversation, and validation techniques. I'm going to link to that older piece in the show notes below, and I would encourage you to really check out that older piece for tools to support your own appropriate expression of your emotions. I'm not going to list all the tools in this episode. There's so many in that piece, so just go and check out the link in the show notes. Now listen, the tools that I mentioned for each of these 4 tasks, these are just a handful of the hundreds and hundreds of emotional regulation techniques you could supply the quote unquote emotional regulation drawer of your proverbial self-care tool chest with. I obviously didn't go over all of those hundreds of tools. I only listed a, tiny little handful, but my hope in sharing this piece with you is that you see how multidimensional this one drawer is. This drawer is about naming emotions, understanding what information those emotions contain, learning how to tolerate those big feelings, learning how to tolerate those emotions, and then from there, and if necessary, appropriately expressing needs or wants around those emotions. All of these pieces are part of that emotional regulation drawer in the self-care tool chest. Now, at this point, I'll say, this is likely not education those of us from relational trauma backgrounds received when we were young. So I truly hope that even this very high level overview feels helpful for you to hear as an adult today. Now, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What's one of your favorite emotional regulation tools that you use? If you feel so inclined, please leave a message below so that others can benefit from your share and wisdom. You really never know who on the other side of the world you might be helping when you share your story or your experience. Finally, if you're still not sure if this content applies to you, if you're still not sure if you come from a childhood trauma history or suffer its impacts, I would invite you to take my signature quiz. Do I come from a childhood trauma background? It's a 5-minute, 25-question quiz I created that can be incredibly illuminating and will point you in the direction of a wide variety of resources that can be of further and immediate help to you. Plus, when you take the quiz, you'll be added to my mailing list where you'll receive twice-a-month letters from me sharing original high-quality episodes with accompanying YouTube videos and audios you can stream, all of it devoted to the topic of childhood trauma recovery, and where I share more about me as a person, my life, and how I'm journeying through my own childhood trauma recovery and general adulthood. My newsletters are the only place where I share intimate glimpses into my life, including photos, the resources that are supporting me, the things I've discovered that delight me, words that are uplifting me, the practices that nourish me, and more. So please, be sure to sign up for my mailing list, whether or not you want to take the quiz. I'll link to both of these things in the show notes below. Finally, thank you so much for listening to me today. I truly hope that even a small part of what I shared today felt helpful to you. If you found value in this information and would like to stay connected with my latest content, please consider giving the episode a like. It helps more than you know. Also, subscribing to my channel and turning on the notification bell ensures you're always up to date with my newest episodes. I appreciate your support and look forward to continuing this journey with you. So thank you. And until next time, please take such good care of yourself. You're so worth it.